Hello, this is the 5th campaign diary for the Fall of Plaguestone. Just an FYI, we experimented with a dice module for this session, but we decided not to use it going forwards, so you'll see some dice on screen, but only for this one episode. When we left off, our heroes had finally met the elusive ranger Noala, and upon her request, journeyed to a nearby site of terrible blight. The trees and foliage were stained black, and upon reaching the apparent source, they were attacked by deadly living plants. After an extremely difficult fight, our heroes took the time to recover before pushing forwards towards the collapsed tree that acted as the den's entrance.
I guess we go in, right?
I mean, the area should be clear now.
The narrow tunnel is slick with foul-smelling mud. It leads down into a cramped den lit by a shimmering pool of oily water. The chamber stinks of wet fur and sickness. Next to the pool, between the gnarled and dying tree roots, is the rotting carcass of what must have once been a truly gigantic wolf. Nosing around it is a pair of hairless mutant wolves, their bodies deformed by large pustules and tumours. Although they have no eyes, they clearly detect your presence, for they turn their heads and snarl at you. The blind wolves within attacked on sight. Scent. And we rolled initiative. This fight was fun because due to the low ceiling and the dense root system, everywhere was difficult terrain, and you can't target a creature with a ranged attack if they're more than 5 feet away. This made for some interesting tactics where everybody had to push into the room and spread out in order to give all of our heroes access to an enemy each. However, the mutant wolves have a reaction where if they are critically hit, they spray acid at the creature that hit them. Basically, they would be much better fought at range, but without backing out of the nest, the group can't do so. To help with the balance a bit, I gave both the mutated wolves the weak template, and aside from a nasty crit on Wolfram, the fight went quite smoothly. Both wolves were killed swiftly, and the group began to look around the den. The water within the den looked foul, however, when Misha gave it a closer look, a critical fail on her recall knowledge check made her mistake it for normal water. She stepped into the water to try and wash off some persistent acid that was left over from the battle. Doing so did help remove the acid, but she was left with a nasty, itchy rash instead. Misha then looked closely at the wolves, especially the large dead one. It was clearly mutated, and its blood had become a horrible alchemical soup. It had no visible wounds, but it was quite clear what had killed it. The beast had simply mutated beyond what its body could handle.
These mutated creatures really seem to have a tough time, huh?
I just hope whatever's mutating them can't pass on to those of us with animalistic persuasions. I really don't want to go down this road myself.
I just hope whatever it is, we can stop it soon.
Meanwhile, Namari examined the water. It had an acrid smell and was oily to the touch. It clearly had some caustic properties that would be damaging to the plant life feeding off it. But she had no idea specifically what was in the water.
I wonder if this big one here is rotting into the water, and that's what's tainting the forest?
I don't think it's just a single one. I think they might have gotten sick from what is around them. So it's the forest that is sick, and the creatures becoming sick with it.
I think we should search this cave more and see where this all is coming from.
Unfortunately, this small den had no further clues to offer them, so our heroes returned to Nuala. The adventure states that during the fight, some of the wolves slip out of the den and Nuala stops them with her snares, but there was really no chance for that to happen, and it provides no input to the story beyond making Nuala seem more involved, so I dismissed that section. Instead, she stood by a campfire burning a pair of smaller corrupted animals that had been caught in a snare. Our heroes approached and explained what they had found.
Well, we found the source of some of your problems. There is a few rather interesting mutated wolves in there.
I see. Did you deal with them?
We slain them, yeah.
Well, there was a big one who was already rotting.
Oh. Maybe the caustic wolves were a brood.
There is this really interesting pool next to them. It seemed to have some kind of acidic properties to it. We're not sure if that's leaching out into the woods. We may need to go and remove their corpses and burn them. Perhaps maybe treat that water somehow.
Well, the corrupted water would do the job of corrupting the forest. Although there are no caves that contain access to significant water sources nearby. I'm not sure how it would have spread so far. Perhaps we go to the biggest blight in the forest, the oldest one. We see what we can find there.
I think that's a good idea. But should we deal with those corpses first? I don't like the idea of leaving them to rot and spread the infection further.
I am torn because the forest is already ruined here. I'm not sure they would add much extra harm than what has already been done. And I would like to go to the large blight at once. It is a long journey. It would take us the rest of the day. I would like to set off at once.
Whatever you think's best is okay with me. What about you guys?
I agree with this. The forest seems to be soaked with the rot already.
Yes, let's go check out what may be causing this.
After a short time healing and preparing, Noala led the group much deeper into the forest. The journey took them the rest of the day, and before they arrived, it had grown dark and the sun had set. Once they entered the large, rotten section of forest, it became more and more corrupted. The first signs were already stranger than what they had previously encountered. The outer band of rot had no shortage of dying trees and blackened bushes. Deeper in, all plants were dead. Even the grass was limp and the air smelled sweet with sticky decay. The sounds of birds and insects disappeared entirely. After 20 minutes of travel, the group reached the center of the rot where the plants began to return to twisted life. The leaves dripped with oily sap, the branches were gnarled yet strangely pliable. Tree bark manifested as scales, and all the plants were covered in odd pustules that emitted a faint glow. The air was thick with swollen gnats that burst into harmless flames when swat at. The train continued like this for 1 hour until eventually, out of the darkness loomed a large cliff face and a suspiciously intentional looking wall of thorns. Noala excused herself and went to check the perimeter. I'm not sure I should go much further myself. I will patrol again. I will give you these. And she pulls out 3 lesser healing potions and 2 bark skin potions. I will look for stragglers again. This place looks dangerous, so be careful.
So, just before you go, I just want to clarify, what are you expecting us to do here? Go in, explore, eliminate any issues? Or if we don't find them, do you want us just to report back?
Yes, we need to know what's happening. Clearly this is the center. It is getting worse. So, see what you find. Deal with anything that needs dealing with.
And how long should it take us to get to the middle?
I don't know. I haven't been this deep in. Too dangerous.
Well, I suppose if we're not back by sunup, something's gone wrong.
Cautiously, our heroes moved towards the wall. They noticed boot prints in the dark that led into the walled area and began to follow them. As they moved through the final area of wilderness, they faced yet another set of aggressive plants. Thankfully, these ones are much less dangerous than the last set. Vine lashes can essentially strike with a 10-foot reach and grapple their target. What makes the fight interesting is the 3 additional plants that release a large area of mind-fuddle gas. This gas, if the heroes become affected, causes the stupefied condition, and can even deal mental damage at stage 3. However, the group got very lucky in the fact that Namari triggered the gas when the other 2 were outside of the radius. And Namari is a lizard folk, so she gets the breath control feat. This basically nullified the threat of the gas, and they easily cut down the remaining vine lashes, waited out the gas, which dissipated pretty soon. With the threat resolved, the group moved up to the gate. This gate is comprised of many thorny branches winding clockwise in a broad circle, and it did not have a door handle nor a keyhole. To unlock the door, the party must bypass a simple puzzle. Within the door, a single vine is running counterclockwise. If this counterclockwise vine is twisted, the door opens. While it is intended as a puzzle, it's one that's written in a way where a simple skill check can overcome it. A nature or perception check will reveal the required vine. They can also just hack or burn the door down. Misha chose to examine the door, and a successful perception check revealed the vine to her, so puzzle defeated. Puzzles like this always feel a bit half-baked, as they end up needing very little engagement from the players, but in their defense, short of drawing a doorway and leaving the players to pore over it for visual clues, I'm not sure what else they could have done here. Either way, our heroes moved into the yard. On the other side of the wall of brambles is a yard dominated by 3 large wooden gates and a pool of bubbling sludge. A wretched-looking horse stands in one of these cages, while another is filled with a swarm of gigantic rats covered in white blisters. The third pen looks empty, but it appears to be built around a small cave located in the hillside. There is another cave entrance on the north side, near one of the pens. Since no attempt was made by our heroes to hide or snuff out their lights, the orcs in the yard immediately jumped into action and we rolled initiative. When rebalancing this encounter for 3 players, I decided not to mess with the number of combatants or their strength, but instead I changed their tactics and motives. As written in the module, the orcs free the elemental animals. One of those is a stone horse, who is a loyal and powerful creature. The other released creature is a pair of icy rats. When one is written, these rats are also loyal and will attack the party. What I did to alleviate some of the difficulty was change the story so that these rats were a newer creation and not yet trained. When the orc ran over to open the cage, much to his surprise, the rats immediately attacked him. What this did was remove an orc from the threat of the encounter, as well as stalling the rats so that our party could first face the other orc and the stone horse, then they could deal with the rats. Another feature of the battlefield, adding some randomization, was the pool of toxic sludge. Due to high winds, each round, creatures stood downwind from the pool took acid damage. Luckily for our heroes, they managed to avoid the acid wind, however they did get to use it to their advantage. Throughout the battle, the orcs and rats were affected by this wind. As the battle began, the orcs freed their captive elemental animals. The orc that freed the stone horse and the horse itself then rushed the party. The orc stood back throwing javelins as the mighty stone horse engaged the party. Namari and Wolfram faced down the elemental horse, while Misha stood back and used ranged spells to help where she could. Further in the darkness, the freed icy rats took their revenge on the orc and attacked him. They skirmished for several rounds before the rats killed him. During this fight, the rats did take some mild acid damage, weakening them further before they joined the main battle. Meanwhile, the stone horse, while not a particularly interesting foe mechanically, it does hit very hard. Its stone hide proved difficult to bypass for both Namari and Wolfram due to its resistance to all physical damage. So progress in hurting it was slow, until Misha buffed them with a Courageous Anthem spell. Wolfram drank an oak potion after seeing how hard Namari was getting hit, and fought back, as an orc pelted him with javelins. The group had taken a beating, so potions were drank, and Namari used one of her focus spells to cast Weapon Surge. This did good work bypassing the resistance by adding holy damage to the strike. Misha tried to take down the horse using her spells, however her preferred damage cantrip, Phase Bolt, deals piercing damage which is still physical damage. So while it was disappointing to see the low damage, it was a good teaching moment that some spells still do physical damage. As the horse continued to smash into Namari, the rats rushed over to the main battle. Still enraged from their torturous treatment, they prioritized the surviving orc and began to gnaw away at him. Our heroes were happy to let the rats distract the orc, so they didn't want to get aggro yet. As such, they kept working as a team to bring down the horse. The orc and rats brawled until the horse came to the orc's defense. The horse kicked out, killing a rat and causing it to explode into icy shards. Ironically, this explosion killed the orc it had been trying to save and sent the horse into a confused frenzy. It rushed the final rat, and the two animals battled. Wolfram took the opportunity to jump in and finish off the stone horse with his spinning staff focus spell. All that was left was the frightened and violent rat. It rushed Wolfram and managed to get a final crit in before they put it down. Once the threat of battle had subsided, our heroes healed up and discussed what they had fought here.
These animals have also been affected by this, whatever this is, and they were just using them for their advantage. The rats didn't seem to like them very much.
I mean, horses are a little bit more trusty than rats, right? So maybe they used them for something? It looked like it could do some heavy work.
Do you want to go have a look what's in that other cage?
Yeah, sure.
Misha headed over to the southern cage, the only one the orcs hadn't opened. She could see the light of flickering flames deep in the cave, and a small amount of smoke pooling around the ceiling. She yelled into the cave, but got no response, beyond the light moving deeper into the cave. Her interest was piqued, so she opened the cage to head in. However, Namari and Wolfram were very vocal about not wanting to risk another fight yet, especially against a fire elemental creature.
I will look over to the other guys. I think there is someone there. I mean, I will have a look while you guys are busy. And I will open the door because again.
Please
Oh
don't be
my
another horse.
god.
The horse
Yeah.
wouldn't be shuffling around a flame, it's not stupid.
Maybe it's a baby horse.
It's something
Oh,
on
I would-
fire. It's something on fire, please.
You think so?
We take extra fire damage. Please don't.
I mean, we spent 10 minutes refocusing, so the bark thingies are off anyway.
Oh yeah, true.
Plus, you're busy healing over there.
I am. I don't know
Misha's
what's
doing her
going
own
on.
thing. Misha agreed to leave the cage alone and return to the group. This was a shame, as the creature in the cave is actually a social encounter, not a battle. It's also one of the unique unlockable pieces of content from this adventure. Hopefully they return to it later before they leave. Once they were ready, they headed into the cave. The bright light from outside is replaced by a flickering torchlight in a narrow passageway cut deeply into the hillside. Suddenly, the passage opens into a broad natural cavern containing a series of large tables on the far side of the room. A series of alchemical experiments, most bubbling and frothing as they cook, are arranged on top of the workspaces. Again, our heroes made no attempt to hide, so the two orc alchemists within were rapidly trying to prepare alchemical items and glancing towards the doorway, and that is where we left the session. This one was certainly more combat heavy than the previous sessions of this adventure, so there was less clues to find and more violence to be had. However, this location has a lot of lore to be found and will help them find their next goal. Next session, our heroes will face the incredibly infamous Blood Ooze fight, famous for being one of the most unbalanced encounters ever to be written in a Paizo adventure. I do have a plan to fix the encounter, so we'll have to see how that goes. This is definitely a shorter episode for the Fall of Plaguestone series, but some of them will just not have that much to talk about, unfortunately. I still hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you so much for watching. Please like the video if you enjoyed this campaign diary, and subscribe if you aren't. You can find a link to my Discord below if you want to talk about tabletop RPGs with myself or other like-minded GMs. That's all for today, though. I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.